They tried to sell my house without asking, without telling me, and without even owning it. I was at a construction site when my neighbor Dolores texted me a photo that made my stomach drop. Strangers in business suits stood on my grandfather's cabin deck with tape measures, while a realtor in designer heels pointed at the property like she already had the commission check in her pocket. The smell of spilled coffee filled my truck as my hands shook. My phone played a voicemail from HOA President Veronica Ashworth, her voice dripping with smugness. "Just exploring community improvement options, Garrett. You understand?" "No, Veronica, I don't understand how you think you can sell what isn't yours. But I do understand one thing: how to fight back. What would you do if strangers toured your property like they already owned it?" Because that's exactly what I was staring down. "My name's Garrett, and that cabin has been in my family for 43 years. My grandfather Fletcher bought those 2 acres in 1981 with his disability check from the Korean War. He came home with shrapnel in his leg and nightmares that never left, but by the lake, he found peace. He built that cabin by hand, every nail, every board, every pipe, stronger than most new homes today. This is our forever home, Garrett," he'd tell me as we stained the deck together, the scent of pine sticking to our hands. "Nobody can take what you build with your own sweat." He passed away 3 years ago, leaving me the cabin and every memory it holds. It's where my daughter Mackenzie, 16, escapes when life gets heavy. It's where I go to remember what quiet sounds like after 60-hour weeks of jackhammers and shouting foremen. That cabin predates the HOA by 30 years. The deed proves it, clear ownership before these suburban rulemakers decided every house needed matching mailboxes. But then came Veronica Ashworth. HOA president. California transplant. White BMW. Perfect nails, sharp enough to cut glass, pointing at neighbors' violations. She once measured someone's grass with an actual ruler, 12 inches, like we were in 3rd grade. 6 months ago, she slapped me with a citation. My grandfather's workshop was a non-conforming rustic structure. Translation: it didn't match her cookie-cutter vision. She demanded $15,000 in compliance fees or a full rebuild. When I told her where she could shove her compliance fees, in language my grandfather would have approved, she escalated. That's how we got here. Her sorority sister, the realtor, marketing my family's sanctuary as a prime development opportunity with teardown potential. They actually planned to bulldoze my grandfather's workshop for a yoga studio. But here's what makes my blood boil: they have zero legal standing. This is pure intimidation, hoping I'll sell cheap so Veronica can flip it to developers for 10 times the price. And it's not just me she's targeting. Mrs. Patterson got cited because her roses were too colorful. The Hendricks family faces fines for parking their work truck in their own driveway. She's trying to clear out anyone who doesn't fit her vision of luxury suburbia. But she picked the wrong family. My grandfather didn't survive frozen foxholes in Korea, so an HOA tyrant could erase his legacy. Then came her next move, a fake, legal notice, claiming I'd abandoned the cabin because I only use it weekends. She threatened $500 daily fines unless I lived there full-time or surrendered the deed. She even copied the letter to her tennis partner, the county commissioner. Her message was clear: I have connections. You don't. But here's what Veronica doesn't get: construction workers solve problems for a living. I spent my lunch break at the county clerk's office, flipping through decades of dusty records. And that's when Beverly, the clerk, pointed to Fletcher's original 1981 survey. Turns out, our property line stretches 50 feet farther north than anyone thought, including Veronica. That shiny new HOA mailbox cluster? It's sitting on my family's land. Even better, the deed carried a clause I'd never noticed: grandfathered property rights, permanently exempt from HOA authority. In legal terms, this land belongs to us, forever. And the real bombshell? Dolores showed up at my door with cookies and a list. Veronica had tried to bribe her, $500 to spy on me. She'd been doing it to other neighbors, too, pushing families until they sold. But Dolores wasn't just watching. She'd been documenting everything: photos, letters, recordings. 30 years as a school principal taught her how to spot a bully, and she'd built a case file that could bury Veronica. The icing on the cake? Veronica's lawyer act was a fraud. Her California law license had been suspended for mishandling client funds. Behind the BMW and manicured nails was a woman drowning in debt, 3 months behind on her mortgage, bluffing her way through. That night, I installed security cameras around the cabin, construction site grade, motion activated, night vision. If Veronica wanted surveillance games, I'd play them better. Then I called Tom Martinez, a local attorney with a reputation for hammering HOA bullies into the ground. I brought him everything: the fake legal notices, the survey, Dolores's evidence. Tom didn't even hesitate. This woman just picked a fight with the wrong family. For the first time since this nightmare started, I felt something new: confidence. Veronica thought she was playing chess while I played checkers. She was about to find out construction workers play chess, too, and we build better boards. 2 weeks later, her next move arrived. A white county truck rolled into my driveway. Out stepped Code Enforcement Officer Harold Wessler, clipboard in hand, looking miserable. And of course, Veronica, smiling like a cat about to eat. "Mr. Fletcher," Harold began, reading off notes. "We've received complaints about unpermitted structures. Specifically, that workshop appears to violate code and may require immediate remediation." Remediation meant one thing: demolition. Veronica stepped forward, savoring it. $25,000 in permits and updates, or tear it down in 30 days. I clenched my jaw, the smell of Harold's cigarettes mixing with Veronica's perfume. But instead of exploding, I pulled out my phone and hit record. "Harold, can you show me exactly which codes this building violates?" He shifted, glancing at Veronica. "Well, there's no permit on file in the system, because the county lost records in 2019, I cut in. But I bet the original contractor still has copies." Veronica's smile flickered. She hadn't planned for that. And that's when I started digging, and hit gold. Jimmy Kowalski is 74 now, retired but sharp as a tack. When I mentioned my grandfather's cabin, he laughed. "Hell yes, I remember that job. Your granddad was a perfectionist. Made me redo the foundation twice because one corner was off by half an inch. That workshop? Built to survive a hurricane." Jimmy still had his project files from 1983, original permit, inspection reports, final approval signatures. Everything Veronica claimed didn't exist, sitting in a dusty filing cabinet in his basement. Sometimes the best defense against bureaucratic bullies is simple: better paperwork. And old contractors never throw anything away. But the real shock came later that night when Harold, the code enforcement officer, called me in a hushed voice. "Garrett, off the record? Those violations I cited today, they're questionable at best. Ashworth's been leaning on me to find problems with certain properties." Harold admitted Veronica had been funding his campaign events, but her support came with strings. "I can't say this officially. But if you file a harassment complaint, I'll back you. This isn't how code enforcement should work." The next morning, my security cameras delivered a gift. At 12:47 a.m., clear as day on infrared, Veronica crept onto my land carrying a bag of flower pots. She carefully lined them up, tape measure in hand, as if she were planting evidence for a staged violation. What she didn't realize: my grandfather's survey put those pots 15 feet inside my boundary. She wasn't proving encroachment, she was trespassing and fabricating evidence. I downloaded the footage, grinning into my coffee. Sent it to Tom Martinez, who nearly choked on his. "She just committed criminal trespass, attempted fraud, and conspiracy to file false reports," he laughed. "Garrett, this woman is building our case for us." By that afternoon, Jimmy had delivered the permits, photos, and a sworn affidavit confirming the workshop's compliance. Dolores added more intel. Veronica had pressured Roscoe at the hardware store to cut off problem neighbors. She was spiraling, and as Dolores wisely said, desperate people make stupid mistakes. Harold officially withdrew the violation notice that Friday. Instead of scaring me into compliance, Veronica had created a paper trail of harassment and dropped criminal evidence right into our laps. But I knew one thing: when cornered, desperate people get dangerous. 3 days later, she proved me right. A process server knocked on my door at 6:30 a.m. with a lawsuit thick enough to choke a horse: Veronica Ashworth versus Garrett Fletcher. Her claim? My property devalued the neighborhood by $2 million. She accused me of intimidation, neglect, and hostile environment tactics. She even sought a restraining order to keep me off my own land. Her attorney? Marcus Webb of Steinberg & Webb, a $500 an hour legal pit bull whose letterhead alone probably cost more than my mortgage. But here's the thing: desperation makes people sloppy. Veronica had just handed us the rope to hang her with. I called Tom. He didn't hesitate. "Bring me everything. Deeds, surveys, footage, financials. This isn't just a defense anymore, we're filing a countersuit." Meanwhile, my buddy Rick started digging. His cousin worked for a private investigation firm, and blue-collar favors run deep. By that afternoon, he had dirt. "Your HOA queen is drowning in debt," Rick said. "Bankruptcy filings, $180,000 in credit cards, mortgage in default. She's 3 months from losing it all." And then he dropped the bomb: Lakeshore Properties. They'd been quietly buying distressed homes around the lake, 3 foreclosures in the last year, all through shell companies. Their strategy? Community optimization. Translation: partner with HOAs, harass families until they fold, scoop up property cheap, and flip it for millions. Veronica wasn't protecting property values. She was working for them. That night, Tom called with a discovery that nearly made me drop my sandwich. "Garrett, your HOA isn't legally incorporated. Their original 2019 filing was rejected for incomplete signatures. Veronica never fixed it. Every fine, every citation, every so-called enforcement action? Completely void. An unincorporated HOA has the authority of a book club. She'd been collecting dues and issuing penalties with no legal right. That wasn't overzealous management, it was fraud. And the numbers were staggering. 47 families had paid an average of $3,200 each. That's nearly $500,000 stolen in 3 years. Elderly residents had taken out loans to pay bogus fines. Some had gotten sick from the stress. Mrs. Patterson's anxiety attacks. The Morrisons forced to sell. All of it tied to Veronica's fraud. Tom's paralegal went further. Out of $430,000 collected, only $180,000 remained. The rest? Gone. Traced to Veronica's personal accounts, wire transfers, cashier's checks, disguised as consulting fees. Spa trips. Vacations. Car payments. She'd been looting her neighbors' wallets to fund her lifestyle. But the kicker was the smoking gun, a $50,000 payment from Lakeshore Properties, 2 days after she ramped up enforcement against me and 3 other lakefront owners. The resort company's blueprint was clear: use Veronica to drive families out, buy properties for pennies, and flip them for $15 million. Veronica's cut? $500,000, just enough to escape her debts before anyone caught on. But she got greedy. Filing fake incorporation papers. Submitting bogus legal filings. Layering fraud on top of fraud until the whole house of cards shook. This wasn't about my grandfather's cabin anymore. It wasn't even about me. It was about protecting an entire community from organized crime hiding behind HOA letterhead. Tom's voice was deadly serious. "We're not just fighting her, Garrett. We're about to bring down a racket. Wire fraud. Embezzlement. Racketeering. And when this blows up, it won't just be civil court. It'll be criminal." That night, I sat on the cabin porch, the October air heavy with wood smoke and fallen leaves. Loons called across the lake, their voices haunting but steady. My grandfather always said bullies count on people staying scared and quiet. But sometimes, they pick on the wrong person, at the exact moment their lies are about to collapse. Veronica thought she was fighting me over one cabin. In reality, she'd just declared war on 47 families, and an entire community ready to rise up. And the real battle was just beginning. The hammer was finally coming down. Federal charges for wire fraud and racketeering, asset freezing orders to claw back stolen money, but most importantly, a plan to expose everything publicly. Every resident deserved to know that their trusted HOA president had been robbing them blind. Veronica thought she was orchestrating a clever real estate scheme. In reality, she'd been building the very case that would land her in federal prison. Tom Martinez's law office became our war room. The conference table vanished under piles of financial records, property deeds, and evidence files that looked straight out of a federal raid. Because, as it turned out, that's exactly what this was becoming. "We need to coordinate 3 tracks," Tom explained, spreading a timeline across the polished wood. "Criminal charges, civil recovery, and community protection. If we do this right, we shut her down and recover every stolen dollar." The first call went to District Attorney Sarah Butler, a white-collar crime specialist Tom had worked with before on HOA fraud. Corrupt boards were becoming an epidemic across the state. $430,000 in theft, organized harassment, conspiracy with developers, Tom summarized on the call. Plus federal wire fraud for mail and electronic transfers. "This is the kind of case that needs to set an example." Butler agreed. Within 48 hours, forensic accountants were combing through 5 years of HOA transactions. Meanwhile, I worked on the community front. My first stop, the VFW Hall. Grandpa's old army buddies still gathered there every Thursday, and these men weren't about to be intimidated by HOA legal threats. "Fletcher's grandson needs help with a neighborhood problem," announced Roy Patterson, my grandfather's foxhole buddy. The room went quiet as I laid out Veronica's scheme. When I finished, 23 veterans volunteered for patrols and documentation. Turns out retired military make excellent intelligence officers. Surveillance and evidence gathering translate perfectly to fighting HOA corruption. Dolores emerged as our organizer. Years as a school principal had taught her how to manage people and keep records. She opened a filing cabinet stuffed with photos, recordings, threatening letters, and financial demands, all neatly dated and cataloged. The scope was staggering: 47 families targeted in 3 years, with illegal extractions averaging $3,200 per household. Some elderly neighbors had been bled for over $10,000 in fake fines. Then came Rick's cousin, P.I. Tony Martinez, no relation to Tom. He brought professional surveillance gear, financial tracking software, and contacts in law enforcement. Your HOA president made one crucial mistake, Tony explained. She got lazy with digital security. Every fraudulent transaction leaves an electronic trail. And trails are permanent. The evidence was overwhelming, but random accusations wouldn't cut it. We needed a coordinated strike, legal action, media exposure, and community mobilization. Tom moved first, filing emergency motions to freeze HOA assets before Veronica drained them. I'd read about corruption cases where documentation and public pressure created unstoppable momentum. That was our blueprint. For media strategy, we recruited Janet Walsh, an investigative reporter known for exposing municipal corruption. This is exactly what people need to hear, Janet said after reviewing the files. HOA fraud is everywhere, but most don't know how to fight back. Your case could help families statewide. We scheduled a full media blitz, newspaper article, TV segment, and social campaign, all launching together. The goal, so much attention that Veronica couldn't intimidate witnesses or cover her tracks. But we also needed community healing. 47 families had been isolated and humiliated. Mackenzie suggested building a veterans memorial garden on the disputed property line. Instead of neighbors fighting over land, we'd create something permanent, honoring service while reclaiming space. Grandpa Fletcher would love this, she said, sketching designs with native plants and memorial stones. He always said the best way to beat bullies is to build something better. The project gave us legitimate grounds for meetings, volunteer sign-ups, and media coverage, while shifting the story from neighbors versus HOA to community honoring veterans while fighting corruption. By Friday, our coalition included 23 veterans, 47 families, 3 lawyers, 2 private investigators, the DA's office, and 1 very determined teenager with drafting skills. Veronica thought she was up against one stubborn construction worker. She was about to face an entire community armed with evidence, legal firepower, and a righteous cause. The countdown to justice had begun. Her panic showed Monday morning, an emergency notice claiming the HOA was being dissolved for administrative restructuring. Translation: she was trying to grab the last of the money and vanish. Tom was ready. By noon, a court order froze every HOA account. Her escape died before it started. That's when she switched tactics, from fraud to character assassination. Tuesday night, Carl handed me a flyer he found plastered on cars at the grocery store. Bold headline: Dangerous Neighbor Alert. The flyer painted me as a violent criminal with a drug lab in my workshop. Total fiction, but furious in its detail. Veronica doubled down, offering cash for false testimony. Dolores came by Wednesday morning, voice low. She offered me $3,000 to say you'd been harassing residents, she whispered, showing me the recording on her phone. Clear as day, Veronica offering bribes for fake witness statements. She'd made the same offer to 5 others. Meanwhile, my cameras logged her driving past my cabin 17 times in a single day. At 2:47 a.m. Friday, she finally snapped, spray painting "foreclosed" across Grandpa's workshop, smashing windows, and scattering drug paraphernalia at my gate. Her mistake? Forgetting to disable my security system. 3 cameras caught every second, including her face in full view. Deputy Mike Harrison reviewed the footage while she sat handcuffed in his patrol car. She just graduated from fraud to breaking and entering, he said. Plus vandalism, evidence planting, false reports, serious felonies. The drug evidence was laughable, bagged crack pipes with her fingerprints. Even without the footage, it would have led straight back to her. By sunrise, the local paper ran with the headline, HOA President Arrested for Harassment Campaign. Janet uncovered even more. Veronica had run the same scam in Arizona and California, losing her law license for trust account violations. She was a serial con artist. But even in handcuffs, she wasn't finished. Within 12 hours, she'd posted bail through a developer ally and hired Blackstone Crisis Management, a reputation laundering firm known for scorched earth tactics. The counterattack was swift. Anonymous robocalls accused me of masterminding the fraud. Fake social accounts spread doctored photos of my cabin as a meth lab. My business Yelp page flooded with 1-star reviews. Then they crossed the line. Someone reported me to the school district, claiming I was unstable and keeping chemicals and weapons around a minor. CPS was alerted. Mackenzie came home in tears with a letter from her principal. The taste of rage filled my mouth. They had gone after my daughter. That's when our coalition shifted into full war mode. Veterans tracked Blackstone's local operatives to a rented office above a pizza shop. Dolores mobilized teachers and parents, flooding the school with calls vouching for us. Honor roll, tutor, never missed a day, Principal Morrison told me. Whoever reported this was either misinformed or malicious. CPS closed the case in 2 hours. Veronica had escalated to all-out war. But so had we. Social worker Amanda Rodriguez barely spent an hour at our cabin. She noted the spotless condition, reviewed Mackenzie's solid academic records, and spoke with 3 longtime neighbors. Her conclusion was blunt: Mr. Fletcher, this was a malicious report meant to harass your family. We're closing the case immediately and flagging the complaint as fraudulent. For the first time in months, I exhaled. But the real break came when Tom Martinez's forensic accountant uncovered Veronica's offshore scheme. Hidden behind a Caribbean shell company called Community Solutions LLC, nearly $380,000 had been siphoned from HOA residents over 3 years. The transfers were carefully structured, small amounts wired under reporting thresholds, classic laundering tactics. She's been planning this for months, Tom said, spreading the records across his desk. Shell companies, offshore accounts, staged transfers. This wasn't sloppy theft. It was organized crime. The timing couldn't have been worse for Veronica. The IRS had already flagged Community Solutions LLC for suspicious activity. Suddenly she wasn't just facing state fraud charges, she was staring down federal counts of tax evasion, racketeering, and money laundering. By Thursday, her crisis PR firm cut ties. Even Blackstone, famous for salvaging scandals, wanted no part of a client facing decades in federal prison. Desperate, Veronica phoned Tom Friday night. She's offering a deal, Tom told me. 50% restitution, minimum security prison, sealed records. I almost laughed. She wants victims to eat half the loss while she hides her crimes? Tom's voice hardened. I told her she'll face every charge, pay back every dollar, and do it in front of the entire community she tried to crush. No backroom deals. That night, loons called across the lake as I stared at the dark water, knowing tomorrow's town hall would change everything. Saturday morning dawned crisp and bright. By 9 a.m., cars lined the Willowbrook Community Center. By 10:30, the lot looked like a county fair. Local news crews crowded the back, while state TV sat up front. At the head table sat District Attorney Sarah Butler, Sheriff's Deputy Mike Harrison, and FBI Agent Rebecca Torres, their presence alone sending murmurs through the packed hall. Veronica arrived 20 minutes late, flanked only by a nervous attorney. Gone were her designer power suits, in their place, a conservative navy dress that couldn't disguise the tremor in her hands. Tom took the podium. His voice rang steady: "Ladies and gentlemen, your HOA president has been defrauding this community for over 3 years. What you're about to see will explain why your fees kept rising while services vanished." The first slide lit up: $430,000 collected. Only $180,000 remained in official accounts. Gasps filled the room. Where did the rest go? Tom asked, clicking through slides of Veronica's personal expenses, luxury vacations, spa packages, credit card bills, even a $50,000 payment from Lakeshire Properties for phantom services. The crowd's shock turned to outrage. But the knockout blow came with security footage: Veronica spray painting "Foreclosed on my property," planting drug paraphernalia at 2:47 a.m. The room erupted. Shouts of "criminal" and "lock her up" thundered as Veronica stared, frozen. Elderly Ed Kowalski rose slowly, gripping his walker. His voice trembled: "This woman made me mortgage my home to pay fake fines. 32 years in this community, and she told me my American flag was non-conforming. She's no president, she's a predator." One by one, victims stood. Families forced to sell their homes. Retirees drained of savings. Neighbors hospitalized from stress. 47 families. Over $400,000 stolen. Veronica tried to speak: "These are misunderstandings," but DA Butler cut her short. "Mrs. Ashworth, you have the right to remain silent. I suggest you use it." Then Butler faced the crowd. "Based on 2 weeks of evidence, we are filing 23 felony charges: grand theft, fraud, racketeering, conspiracy, and money laundering." Applause shook the walls. Agent Torres followed: "By wiring stolen funds across state lines, Mrs. Ashworth triggered federal statutes. She faces additional charges carrying mandatory prison terms." But the moment no one would forget came when Roy Patterson, my grandfather's old army buddy, stepped forward with a folded flag. Fletcher's grandson didn't just fight for his land, he fought for every family here. That's what real Americans do: protect each other from abuse of power. He placed the flag in my hands. The room rose in a 10-minute ovation. Veronica sat silent, watching her empire of lies collapse before 300 witnesses and live TV cameras. 6 months later, Judge Morrison's gavel echoed in federal court. "Mrs. Ashworth, you violated the sacred trust community's place in their leaders. Your systematic fraud represents the worst abuse of power." Sentence: 5 years in prison. $2.8 million restitution. Every dollar recovered, even the offshore accounts. Residents received refunds with interest. Ed Kowalski paid off his mortgage. The Pattersons finally took a vacation. But the real victory was deeper. Willowbrook found its voice again. Our Veterans Memorial Garden opened that fall, 3 generations saluting as Governor Williams praised ordinary citizens for extraordinary courage. Mackenzie's design, wildflowers, granite stones, and Grandpa's words etched in stone, stood as proof that integrity can outlast corruption. Our case became the template for statewide HOA reform. Task forces recovered millions. Law schools taught the Willowbrook model. Mackenzie entered pre-law, scholarships in hand, determined to fight corruption from the front lines. And me? Each sunrise on Grandpa's porch reminds me, peace is built, not given. Last week, a Tennessee family called, facing their own HOA nightmare. I shared everything we'd learned. By the end, they felt ready to fight back. That's the legacy, ordinary people refusing to stay silent. Because corruption only wins when communities stay quiet. And Willowbrook? We proved what happens when small towns fight back, together.